Welcome back to the PreVetted podcast, where we spotlight extraordinary people and remarkable talents reshaping our world. So, our guest today is Chris Oliver. He is a Rails luminary, serial product shipper, and unstoppable force behind the Rails power GoRails. He's also doing Hatchbox IO, which is a zero pane deployment for Rails on your own server. GoRails is a Ruby on Rails screencast and learning library. He's doing a Jumpstart Rails template, a starter kit, a sell repo, a one-time purchase storefront. He's also doing podcasting. He's hosting the Remote Ruby podcast. He also works on RailsBytes, plug and play templates that turbocharge any Rails app. And I don't know when he sleeps, but hello, Chris. How are you doing today?
Good. Really good. Yeah, you make me realize, like, yeah, I have way too many projects going on.
I realized I ran out of breath while
Right.
saying, yeah.
Yeah,
So
some of them haven't been touched for a little while, like RailsBytes, but like you build the idea, and if it's just a small thing like that, you build it in a weekend, you ship it, and it kind of just keeps running and doesn't need to change. So it's been nice to have a few things like that are simple.
yes, that's amazing. Yeah, I haven't seen a RailsByte in detail, so I have to review it. That
It's pretty
I found
much
it
just
on your website.
little scripts. So when you can run like Rails app template or like Rails new with a template, it's just you can point that template to one of our URLs, which will give it the source code that somebody uploaded. So
Nice.
it'll execute that, like if you want to use one to install Devise or Tailwind CSS or Bootstrap or something. That's pretty much all it does. Lets you edit those and share them with people. That's
Oh,
it.
nice. I I have a friend. He's working on his own template,
Mm-hmm.
and he's doing the he's basically building a lot of the basic components he needs for a new app, and he has like 10, 20 apps now, that he built, and he keeps adding things to the template. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I'll
That's
mention
exactly what
RailsByte.
that's exactly where RailsBytes and Jumpstart came from. I'm in the same boat. Built a bunch of apps and was like, every time that I do it from scratch, I built it a little differently. And it'd be nice if I could just fix this payment issue in all the apps all at once. And that's kind of where Jumpstart came from, was like, I built GoRails, I built Hatchbox, I built a whole bunch of other things, and I was like, you should just extract this into something. And if you're going to use it for all of your apps, maybe just share it with the world too, because they might find it useful as well. And that's where Jumpstart got born. So that was
Nice.
it. It's a good path. I mean, it's something that like is really hard to maintain for other people because things change so much. It's much easier if you do it for yourself and you don't have to, add infinite other features that you may not use that people are asking for or whatever. That gets hard to maintain, like where it becomes a tough business. But if you're doing it for yourself and only building the features you need, then it's totally worthwhile.
That's a good way to that's a good way to see it, because then the maintenance cost is minimum and you're only working on the things that you actually need.
Yeah, exactly.
But in retrospect, what happens with that is that then other people needs exactly the same features as you need. So it
Yeah.
kind of works.
Yeah, until they start asking for other things, and you're like, that shouldn't be that hard. And you go build it, then you got to maintain it for the rest of your life. And you don't
Right.
use that, like that payment service or whatever. If you don't use it and it changes, then people are like, well, when are you going to fix it? And you're like, I didn't know it was broken because I don't use it. And that's where it gets to be like really tough, So you have to figure out where to draw the line of like, I use this, so I will maintain it. And we'll officially do that, but maybe not everything. So it's tough.
That's a good tip for open source repos maintainers.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Yeah, I've been burned by that. Like with the PageM just supporting many different payment processors, and like I only use one or two, Stripe, and used Braintree a little bit for PayPal, but we don't really use that anymore. And it's just like, seems fine at first, but then you get into the weeds and you're like, actually, these services look similar, but they're very different. And this is way more complicated. And now I have to deal with all these edge cases and things. Like, for example, Braintree, at least last I looked, and I don't think it's changed, but they don't let you swap a subscription from like a yearly plan to a monthly or vice versa. You
Right.
have to calculate the prorations and cancel the subscription and create a new one on the new billing period. And then you have to credit them for the portion of the month that you paid for already but haven't used, and like create a $1 coupon code that you then multiply by that time period that you're giving them credit for. And it's tedious. Like, you go to Stripe and it's just like, oh, you want to switch that? Cool, we'll prorate it for you and calculate all that and do it ourselves, so you don't have to. And Braintree was like, nah, that's your problem. So little things like that end up being very painful to, just maintain, especially like if you don't really use it much or at all. So I've said yes to too many things, and now I have to say no to too many things.
Yes. And because it's your repo, you can say, well, it's there. If you want, you can clone it and make it your own,
Yeah.
right? But now you have to maintain it, or you can use it as is.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Now I take the default of like, well, go make a plugin or something, like, add this yourself, and that helps, because then I can maintain the stuff that I use. And that's like a good example of, like, until recently, Rails had always told you, don't use SQLite. It's not going to work in production. It's not fast enough, blah, blah, blah. And recently, with all the effort that 37 Signals put in, and Stephen Markheim and other contributors, like, SQLite's totally production ready. It was like the Rails implementation of SQLite wasn't actually that good and was missing a few things. So then finally, when 37 Signals needed SQLite support in their once apps, like, let's go fix that finally. Like, nobody really used it, so nobody cared enough to fix those things until they did. So, it's a good example of that, where it's like, it's open source. Yeah, we have it for convenience, so you don't have to run a database server like Postgres or MySQL, but it's not production ready. Well, it was only not production ready because nobody put the effort into like fixing the issues, because SQLite's actually really powerful and performant. So it is just a good example of that in action in the real world of, the open source projects can say they support everything, but there will be a lot of rough edges in those things that don't get used very often.
Right. Yeah, I think that used to be the issue with open source projects, that they didn't have enough quality to be used.
Yeah.
In production environments, and that has been changing throughout the years. And well, Rails is one of those projects that, from the get-go was production ready, right? You could build
Right.
stuff very quickly. Yeah. And the issue that I had with open source project, for instance, for Ubuntu, you had like 4 or 5 different audio editors, but none of them were good enough to use, right?
Yeah, yeah. That's probably one of the biggest things holding me back from switching to Linux full time, is like, I really need something as good as ScreenFlow, where I can record my screen and my camera and then have just basic editing built in, so I can, insert my intro and outro and the audio and music for that, and, just some kind of basic stuff. But there's like, things that are good for video editing, but not like screencasting software like ScreenFlow, really. And so maybe I'll, if I ever find a lot of free time, maybe I'll make an open source screencast editor for Linux.
Yes, the maturity of the tools that we can find on Mac are really good. It pains me to buy the new hardware, but it lasts forever, so it kind of works out.
Yep, definitely.
I recently bought a Mac Studio to start
too.
playing with the LLMs. It's amazing. You have so much RAM, right? They call it differently.
What
It's
size did you get?
integrated memory. So I got the 96 gigabyte RAM.
Did you get the M3 Ultra?
I think yes.
That's the one I got too. Yeah. Yeah, I got that one not for LLMs, but the Ultra processors have more media encoders. So when I'm exporting video in ScreenFlow, it's like way faster, like several
Nice.
minutes faster. Like I think last time I tried it on my M1 Max versus the M2, I bought an M2 before I started reading. It was like, oh well, the next one's coming out soon. So I returned that and waited, but it was like 50% the time to export from my M1 Max. And I was like, whoa. And it was just, if you watch the activity monitor, it's like CPU and GPU usage are like nothing. And I was like, well, then what is doing the exports here? And it's like ScreenFlow's using the media encoders in order to export. So like the more of those you have, the more it can do in parallel. And I realized then if you look at the M1 Ultra, M2 Ultra, M3 Ultra, whatever, the Ultras had double the max of media encoders, and I forget, it's like 2 to 4 or something like that. But they made a big difference. I'm so happy to have this because I can like record a video, export it, and upload it all within like a few minutes. It's awesome.
Right. I used to build computers, myself, put them together, screw them up, it's so much fun, and when you have more time than money, you can save money, you can take my first computer, I didn't have enough money to buy the case, right?
Yeah.
So my first computer was literally on a table with all the components,
Yeah.
and it
Works
worked,
fine.
Yeah. And I scavenged component from here and there. When you're doing IT support, you kind of get spare parts that nobody wants. So I was
Yep.
saying, can I take this home? And they were like, yeah, sure, we're going to throw it away. So it wasn't the last one, but it works. Yeah. And then eventually I evolved to, when I moved to Ubuntu, I started building the core, the kernel, and all that stuff. But then eventually, you run out of time of doing those type of things. So having an off-the-shelf computer you can grab and it has everything you need to work, I think is great.
Yep, I agree. Yeah, every time I built a computer, there's like little settings that you need to tweak or something doesn't work and you got to find this driver configuration thing. And it's just like so tedious to try and get working. And I'm like, I just buy a Mac. It works. I can focus on what I need to do. But I used to, like, speaking of Ubuntu, like when I really got into programming, I bought my own laptop and installed Ubuntu. It was probably 7.10. I probably was 7.10, maybe 7.04. I don't remember exactly, but it's like 2007. And I got on the forums because there was all these different things. Like the NVIDIA driver was really hard to install back then. I found on the forums some guy on the Ubuntu forums had this similar laptop, but the AMD version. I had the Intel version. And he had documented like all the different drivers and config things. And they didn't work for me for everything because I had a different graphics card and I had whatever else. So I started writing a tutorial like he did with all of my parts and all of my drivers and things, and was like, if I'm going to write this down for myself, I might as well share it publicly so other people can use it, and maybe we can get more people using Linux. And that kind of was what started my career, like, making education stuff like that. So I met that guy, we talked a whole bunch. He was like a software developer and he like gave me some advice on like, I wanted to write software, and there was some kid in college that wrote this tool to install the NVIDIA driver because it was pretty tough to do and tweak properly. So he wrote this little GUI that you could run and it would do all that for you. So this guy with the other laptop, the AMD version, he goes, I was asking him for some advice and I was like, I want to contribute back somehow. And I have dial up at home and I have a flash drive and high-speed internet at school. Oh, he was like, you should probably use like Python because it works on Windows and it's pre-installed on Ubuntu and it should work on a Mac. I reverse engineered Aptitude, the like package manager for Ubuntu. I would run it in verbose mode, so it would tell me all the files it's downloading. And I would go download the files and read them. And I would learn, like, this is how Ubuntu works internally. Like, it's got the packages that are installed. You can grab that file and read it with Python, and then go download like Firefox and all its dependencies. And I would pull down that from the repository and see, like, this has all these dependencies, and each one of those has its own dependencies, but we have these installed. So let me go find a list of the packages that we need to download, because it's not as easy on Linux as just grabbing an exe file to install everything. So that was my first like big project that was open source, called Carex, and I got interviewed in a magazine because I wrote that and open sourced it and shared it on the Ubuntu forums, and was like, if anybody else has this problem, because there was a couple tools similar, but like they weren't very user friendly. And I didn't really want to have a command line program, so I wrote a UI for it. And I learned, like, well, you got to use threads, because if you do the work in the main thread, then the UI freezes and the window gets stuck. So I don't know what a thread is. Let me go figure that out. And I read about it, and then I rewrote that app like 13 or 14 times because I learned so much. You know, I didn't know object-oriented programming or anything like that. So sorry, my dog is wanting to play. So I didn't know any object-oriented programming, and I had to teach myself what a class was and all the stuff to build this app. And so each time I'd be learning a bunch of stuff and go back and be like, I think I could do that like more efficiently or faster or with a better, UI or something. And I would just rewrite it. And each time I would learn a ton of things, and it was like something that people tell you, don't rewrite your code or whatever. And it's like, rewrite your code. You'll be amazed how much you've learned when you can compare the two side by side. And like, the first version I wrote was horrible, and then the last version had a great UI. It had all these different features. It had plugins. I didn't know how to do that. And I just like was doing what I was just kind of exploring, and it was way faster, way more efficient. And then it got, popular on the forums, and I got interviewed in the magazine. At my parents' house, we went to Barnes and Noble, and I had bought the magazine with my article in it. I think it's online too, somewhere on the Linux Journal website, but that also got a couple emails where some guy in South Africa was like, hey, I'm setting up a computer lab. We barely have reliable power, and we don't have reliable internet, and we're going to use Linux. So we used your software to set everything up. And I was like, that's amazing. And then somebody else in the US government emailed me once and was like, hey, just want to say thanks. We were using this on like a super secure air-gapped server that can't be connected to the network, and I need to put software on there, so I used your tool. And I was like, what? Like, that is wild. So this is all when I was in school, just learning, and I was like sharing what I was doing and exploring, and you have no idea what's going to come of it, but it's amazing. Open source is so much fun. So that kind of like, that got 150,000 downloads over a few years. And I just realized then that like, whatever I work on from now on, like, people have to use it. That's what like fulfills me. I don't want to build software that nobody uses or whatever. That became really important to me because I've met so many people. So it's been fun to build GoRails and Hatchbox and everything else, and see people using it and asking for new features or bug fixes or whatever it is. It just it's the thing that I'm like, well, the people at the end of the day that I'm helping is why I like programming so much.
Yeah, when you work on this open source project, you have such a intimate connection with the people that use it that no other, when you're working on a closed source project, you don't have that level of connection with the people, right? And
Right.
then because it's open source, a lot of people can contribute it. So now that builds a community around it. So yeah, I think that's great.
Yeah. Yeah, it's what it's all about at the end of the day,
Yes, interesting. I didn't know that the origin story for GoRails is connected with Ubuntu.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, because I took what I like, the tutorials I started to write for Ubuntu, I had on my personal site, and then I started learning Rails because I got a job for a professor at school that was doing Rails. And so I'm learning to like deploy a Rails application and whatever. And I'm like writing notes myself, and I put them up on my blog because why not share my notes? There's nothing, that important I need to keep secret. And then at some point I was like, I should just like, I have a bunch of random thoughts that I'm putting on my blog about school or learning or business or whatever, random stuff. And then there's like Rails tutorials sprinkled in the middle. And I was like, I should just buy a domain and put all the Rails stuff there. So I searched for like, domains with Rails in it, and GoRails came up, and I was like, well, there you go. Short domain, great name and everything. And then I put my tutorials up there, and for whatever reason, they got indexed, and then people started sharing that on Stack Overflow, which then got some good domain reputation from Stack Overflow. And, immediately had like 5,000 or 6,000 visits a month after not being live for very long. And I was like, well, this is fascinating. Maybe I could do something with this. Like, if they come and learn something from those tutorials, maybe I could like sell them something. So that became GoRails. So in 2014, I quit consulting cold turkey because like I was just like risk averse. Like, I knew I could just do another consulting project and make money, but in my free time, I wouldn't really put myself in the uncomfortable position of like, you got to make this work, like do stuff that, go talk to strangers, go sell stuff. And I was like, yeah, I'll just keep hacking on code and whatever. So I decided I'm going to force myself to figure this out. I'm going to quit everything. I'm not going to make any money. I'm going to take this rare opportunity because I saved money. I didn't have any expenses, hardly, no responsibilities. And I was like, now's the time to try it. So I did, and was like, I'm going to make some screencasts and maybe sell a course. And like, I missed Railscasts, which were a weekly screencast, but I didn't want to like commit to doing a screencast every week for the rest of my life. So I was like, I'll do a course, and I'll do one free one and a paid one. And the free one was like 5 lessons, and the paid one was like 10. And nobody bought them because nobody knew who I was. And like, why would you buy a course for somebody you've never heard of? Why are you going to trust them? And it was like $39, and I had sold like 2 of them in a month. And I was like, I'm not going to pay for rent or food or anything like this. So that was like 4 or 5 months in 2024. And I was like, well, my savings is dwindling, and I better figure this out soon. So I realized then, like, if people don't trust me, then I need to publish free stuff, and hopefully that will help build trust more. That if you learn something from the free video, then you probably learn something from the paid video. So that pretty much became GoRails being a weekly subscription screencast, just like Railscast, because I was like, well, maybe that's what made it work for Ryan Bates. And yeah, then people recognized immediately, like, oh, this is kind of like Railscast. And I was like, I'm not trying to be like Railscast, but I'm just trying to figure out something that works, and it seemed to work well for Ryan. And I ended up interviewing for a job for a Y Combinator startup that was doing education and had their big course was 1 month Rails. And I was like, well, I'm a pretty good candidate for this job. And the day I was interviewing with the CEO, somebody had submitted GoRails to Hacker News. GoRails was number 2 all night. And so I woke up to 600 emails from MailChimp that were like, you have a new email subscriber. And I was like, whoa. So that really was when GoRails started to actually make a little bit of money. But I was out of money, so I actually went and worked for that company for a year. And then a year later, it didn't really work out. And so I went full-time on GoRails after that. Yeah, that's kind of how GoRails started. It was real slow at the beginning because I wasn't confident. I didn't know what I was doing. I doubted myself, and like just kept thankfully kept making content and didn't give up, but it was slow going for a long time.
Right. I think we all miss Ryan Bates' Railscast.
Definitely.
That
Yes.
was very interesting. Yeah. A few thoughts. So first, I think that you say it lightly, so I want to emphasize on that. The lessons learned in retrospect sounds obvious. Sounds that was a course to make. That was a decision to make. But in that moment, it's so difficult to come up to realize those insights, right? To understand what is going on and to make the decisions, because you're operating on a very limited subset of data that you have. And when you have no response, what does that mean, right? Does it mean that nobody likes what I did, or does it mean that I did something wrong? And operating on that uncertainty is difficult, right? Yes. And then the other thing I want to encomment, I don't know if that's the right word, recognize, or that you took a leap of faith. You put all in, and that's very brave.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it felt scary, but it wasn't that scary. Like, worst case scenario, I'd go live in my parents' basement or whatever.
Right.
But I had saved like 9 months worth of cash and was like, I am a person who, these days, like, I can go to a conference and talk to people and stuff, but I was like any other awkward, quiet, introverted developer back then. And so I didn't like the idea of like, I want to run my own business, but I didn't want to go talk to people and stuff. And it was like, I got to go figure that out. Like, I'm the one holding myself back here. I need to address my own shortcomings and like force myself to figure it out. So yeah, that was kind of the big thing that I realized. Like, even recording videos, like, I learned to program in grade school, and all of it's in your own head. You're not talking to anybody. You're sitting there quietly, like typing at a computer, thinking about things in your head. But when it came to like recording videos, I couldn't stand my own voice. I couldn't really edit it. I couldn't even explain what I was thinking or any of that. So like the first videos were horrible, and I couldn't stand it. So it literally took me 3 months to come to the conclusion that like I've spent January and February and most of March doing absolutely nothing. I've gotten nowhere. I've not even recorded a full video yet. And I was like, this isn't gonna work. I'm just gonna have to give up. Or, I can force myself to record a video every day and just record 15 minutes, and like I'll delete it if it's bad. And I just did. Every single day I'd record something and delete it because it was terrible. But eventually, after you do that for like a few weeks or a month, you're like, well, that one wasn't that bad. Like, I'm starting to get the hang of it. And those videos became like the first 15 videos. Those 2 courses that I made became the first 15 videos of GoRails. And they were the ones that were decent enough that I thought were okay to publish, And they're terrible if you look at them now, but like, they were still good enough at the time because not many people were making videos teaching Ruby on Rails. So most of it really was just me holding myself back. I had some standards that I couldn't get to, and then I realized like I just got to keep practicing until I, get better at this. And if I don't, then I will never get better at it. And then what happens? So it's nice if you're able to do that, where I didn't have a family. I just had a cat. I didn't have many expenses. I was happy to, eat ramen or whatever. And worst case scenario, like I could go back to living with my parents, but I really didn't want to do that. So I was like, I can also always go back to consulting. Like, that wasn't a problem either. I didn't enjoy it, but like I could fall back to that at any point. I could probably get a project pretty quickly, from my old clients or a friend of theirs or something. So I just realized like I got to go force myself to do something scary. And that I remember, this is funny. I remember back in that day, there was there was like a popular thing going around called like rejection therapy or something like that. And there was this guy on YouTube that would go around and he would do that, which is basically like every single time you go into a restaurant, go ask for something. Like just ask for 20% off your bill. And like you would be embarrassed to go do that normally. Just like go to Walmart and ask for 20% off your groceries or something. And they're going to just tell you no. Like why would you just give you some random person a discount? This video goes viral because this guy goes into Krispy Kreme and he goes to order donuts and he goes, can you make me the Olympic rings in donuts? And he's like asking a ridiculous question because he wants to get a no, so he can just like feel a little awkward and move on. But the lady
They say yes.
The lady at the register was like, yeah, like, do you have a picture? And he's like, no, I don't. Like, I wanted you to say no. But she goes and finds a picture on the internet of the colors and which location in the Olympic rings they are. And she goes and makes them for him and cuts the donuts and everything so they link together. The video was him sitting there waiting for her to make these donuts, just being like face palming the whole time, like so embarrassed. Like, what have I done? And the internet was like, this is amazing. Like, tell Krispy Kreme corporate to give this lady a raise and a promotion and whatever, because she's incredible. And that's when I was like, you know what? This is the kind of stuff that I need, like, in my life right now. Because I'm afraid to, like, I don't want to go up and ask for something or whatever. Like, if you made a mistake in what I ordered, like I asked for no peas or something and there was peas in my like pasta or whatever, like I just deal with it, you know, pick them out, not a big deal. But like you could say something, you could say, hey, I didn't order that. And like those little things at the time I was just like terrible at and introverted and everything. So it was funny. That kind of stuff made a big difference for me back then because it was like, yeah, you know what? You're the business you want to build, the person that's going to hold you back from success is you. So you got to fix yourself first in order to make progress. And I was like, okay, I think I can do that. That's not so bad. But at the time it felt scary, really scary.
I have the same issue with, I'm an introvert that trained myself to become extroverted. Right?
Yeah.
So I remember the day that I made that decision. It's like, if I want to make this work, I have to be more extroverted. So I had to go out and do things.
Yeah.
And
like doing a podcast.
Like doing a podcast. Yeah. And after a while, you feel more comfortable doing it. But yeah, it takes a while. Yeah. And if I watch my videos from the beginning, from the beginning of the podcast, I realize, oh, this is, I suck on those videos, right?
Right.
And now we're coming better and better, on doing this. So yeah, I think that the practice makes you better, but you need to break that initial ice of I have to do it, even if it's going to be bad, so I can just break the ice and start it, right?
Yep. Yeah, that's the way it's got to be sometimes. But as long as you get through it, you can live so much more of a fulfilling life that way. And I think most people are in that same boat. No matter what kind of thing it is, it's usually something that they're holding themselves back from. You're afraid to go ask for a promotion at work or whatever, and it's like you don't get what you don't ask for. So if you're not going to ask, then the person who does will much more likely get a promotion. So if you want to get a promotion, go ask for it. And if they say no, then you ask like, okay, what do I need to do to get one? And then you can learn, because otherwise you're just going to sit around like doing the same stuff and not changing your behavior, and you may not get the promotion at all because you didn't even bother to ask like, how do I get there? So yeah,
you get rejected 100% of the time that you don't ask.
Right, exactly. And you don't even know it.
That's right. So talking a little bit about Rails 8, it's coming. Well, it came up recently. We learned a little bit about what's coming up new on the last RailsConf.
Yep.
which
The
is a
next
little
one's
bit
coming up soon.
of a little
42 days.
sad. Which one?
Rails World
Oh, yes.
in September, yeah, beginning of
September.
September. So
Yes.
very soon.
Yes. I won't be able to go to that one, but I wish you a lot of success there.
Yeah, thanks. I got to start working on my talk.
That's a good question I was going to ask if you're going to do another talk there.
Yep. We have a baby coming right afterwards, so I was deciding whether or not I should submit a talk, and I said, I'll submit something, and if I don't get picked, then good. I'll stay home and we'll just relax before the baby comes, but I submitted something too good, I guess, and got selected, so I'll be speaking this year in Amsterdam, and yeah, I can't wait. It's another one of those things where, like, it was not very long ago where I was going to conferences, but I would never submit a talk. And my wife was like, hey, you need to submit something and get used to speaking on stage. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, I hate public speaking and, I don't want to be up on stage. This is the worst thing. I tried to avoid that as much as possible in school. And you know what? After you do it a few times, it's not so bad. And especially at a conference, like a Rails conference, it's all just a big group of friends. It's not strangers. Like, it's all people who are there because they love the same programming language as you or framework or whatever. And they're there not because they have to be there. They're there because they want to be there. So that made it a lot easier. And I was like, this is great. Like, this is so much fun. And I get to like share some interesting things that I ran into or whatever. That was the other thing that I struggled with too, is like, okay, you're going to get up in front of 800 people or something. What are you going to talk about that is interesting for everybody, no matter what their experience level is? Like, DHH may be in the audience. What are you going to talk about that he might find interesting or whatever? And then there might be somebody who just started learning yesterday. Can you also talk about stuff in the same talk that they'll find interesting? And I was like, this is hard. But over time, you do that a few times, and then you start to get a feel for, I should talk about this or that or whatever, because it's kind of genuinely applicable to everything and not super specific on one level of expertise or something.
Yeah, I did a presentation in front of, I think it was like 3,000 people, something like that.
Wow, that's a lot of people.
Yeah, that's a lot of people. The whole Hilton packed with people. I had to do my demo, and while I'm walking to the stage, my computer freeze, and I had to reboot it again. So I'm like, oh no, I'm going to die. So eventually you get used to that level of pressure, But the thing is, what happens to me is that I still feel nervous, but now I know how to process that, so I can, let it go. Doesn't affect me as much, right?
Right. Yeah, I had to learn to like sort of memorize my talk so that if I get up there and something like that happens or I'm nervous and I forget things, if it's memorized, then I can't really forget it. So it's much calmer up on stage then. I'm not worried or whatever, which then I might talk too fast or too slow or whatever. It'll mess me up. So I realized like I just need to be prepared. And if I memorize it, then I feel prepared enough. And if I've done it enough times, like then I feel like, okay, I don't need to memorize it all. I can go up and wing it and still be good. Because I've practiced enough or just understand it well enough to go up and talk without having to be fully prepared or something. So, more of that understanding yourself and your flaws and how to address those so that you can get through those things makes a big difference.
Yes, I agree. Yeah, and the preparation is key, because then if something goes wrong, it won't like affect you as much, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I'm excited for I hope there was a lot of 3 main things that were announced last year at Rails World that I'm hoping I'll ship somewhere soon around Rails World this year. And then maybe we'll get some more teasers about what's coming next in Rails. I know there was like search and a new editor, text editor, and I forget what the third thing was announced last year, but we haven't seen any of those yet. So looking forward to it's 8 or 9 months later, so we should see them soon, I hope.
I hope, yes, yes. I like the new rich text fields on Rails 8. That's amazing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, the new text editor is going to be built on Jorge's working on it, and it's built on Lexical from Facebook, and it has like all kinds of functionality, and I think it's going to support like HTML and Markdown output. And you like one of the things that came out with the rich text was, I think I was the first person to kind of dig into this, but like action text got announced in Rails 7 or whatever it was. And there was like, as I'm poking through the code, I was like, there's something interesting here, but there's no documentation about it. Well, you can reference any database records you want. So like you can mention a user, and it will save a reference to the user's record. So when they change their name or their avatar or their email address or whatever, when the text is rendered again, it will look them up out of the database and display their current name and their current avatar and stuff. Because if you used GitHub, you might have noticed there's sometimes mentions to somebody's username, but they've changed their username and it just doesn't link to anything anymore, or it links to a different user who took over that username. And they don't do that rich linking to the database records. They just have the username text and they look that up when they're rendering the comments and stuff. So the way Rails was doing it was actually really, really great. But there was no tools to be able to build that into the editor, really. So I had to go learn how that worked and, talk to, I think George Claghorn had done a lot of that work. And so he was explaining to me a bit in the Rails GitHub repository about how it worked. And I was like, okay, I think I can piece this together. And I think that became one of my like RailsConf talks that I initially gave, where I was explaining some of that stuff. Like you can embed a tweet, you can embed a YouTube video, you can embed a user out of your database. And all of this is really cool and supported, but not really documented. So that's a really good conference talk to give. And that was one that fit my criteria of how can I make a talk that will be useful to somebody really beginner or, a Rails expert.
Advance.
And like, here's a
Yeah.
new feature that nobody really understands. Go explain it. And that makes for a good talk. So that was fun times. And I kind of try to do that now wherever I can. Like if there's something not well documented, seems like a great opportunity for me to go help the rest of the community learn,
Right. That's interesting. Yeah. I didn't know that you could do that. You could mention stuff on this action text. I will look it up.
Yeah, it should be, once the new editor is built, should be much easier because it'll have some of the functionality built in. Because right now you have to use like your own JavaScript or a tool where you can type like the @ symbol and then some characters and then have it intercept that and then query and build a drop down, and then you select something and then it needs to insert into the editor, but it needs to have like a special format for that because it's technically, if you mention a user, it's like an attachment, even though an attachment could also be like an image you drag and drop in there. So it's complicated, which is why it wasn't well documented, but it's still complicated today. So the new editor hopefully should make that much, much simpler, because I think they want to make it really easy to do that, because it's something that at this point, that used to be a nice to have feature when you're building web applications. Now that's like a baseline requirement. Every text box should be able to mention a user, or, if you're in Basecamp, it's like maybe you want to reference a calendar event or a message board post or a to-do or something. You need to be able to reference things in your applications these days. Like, go use Notion. You can reference anything, anywhere, any way, and that is just kind of table stakes today. So I'm hoping that becomes really easy here in the next, hopefully, month or two or whatever. We'll see.
Oh, that's nice. Yes, because I tried to implement as mentions on action text, and
Mm-hmm.
when I start getting into it, it was it's getting too complicated. I'll put it on the backlog and I'll do it later,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Because I had the drop down and the users were really using that on the search boxes. So yeah, I like that. I tried to do that, but yeah, it was too much effort for the little time that I have to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one of the features that we put in Jumpstart to save people time. It's like we already have all the users wired up, so you can easily do that. But like the JavaScript library that I use, Zerb Tribute, like it's archived. Like they don't maintain it anymore, which works fine still. But like if there are bugs, they're not getting fixed. And I need to go fix it at some point, but I don't want to maintain their code base. And it's written, however they wanted to do it. And I might want to use vanilla JavaScript or something. And so hopefully that becomes not a problem for us, or the new lexical based editor should have like most of that kind of stuff built in. I think that a lot of the front end stuff has got a lot of learnings between now and then. There are many different approaches that have been tried and tested. Now people understand, like, here's the better way of doing this on the front end without a ton. And browsers have gotten a lot better too. So you can do dialogues now, which is like magical, way simpler than if you've ever had to build a dialogue from scratch in HTML and CSS. Like
It's too much
you
work.
you don't
Yeah.
want, you open the dialogue, you need an animation to open it. Then you need to lock the page from scrolling. But if you do that, then the sidebar, the scroll bar disappears. So then you have to add padding, and then you have to find some way to calculate the padding of the scroll bar so the page layout doesn't shift. And the size of the scroll bar is different on Mac OS and Windows, but also every browser is a little different. And so every little detail of building a dialogue is super tricky. And then thankfully now the browsers have that built in, and you can just say, show this dialogue, and voila, you're done. For the most part, it's not perfect, but it's way simpler than it used to be. And those are the things that we like have today that we can take advantage of and save a ton of time, because you could get stuck doing that. And if you're trying to make it perfect, that could take you a month at least, to deal with every browser, every little edge case. I'm sure that even today, Bootstrap is still merging in, bug fixes on their custom modals that they had. So yeah, it's wild. Those are the things that really make like Rails great as a tool, because you can get so much done. Like you were listing off my projects earlier, and it's like that's crazy amount of stuff to look back that I built as one person, just tinkering with things. And I guess I kind of have I'm lucky in the sense that like I love doing open source and tinkering with these projects. And if I learn something building one of those projects, I can turn it into a video and make it for GoRails. And if I build a feature for one of our apps, I can then extract it into Jumpstart, and then I might need it in GoRails, and it's already in the template, so I can use it everywhere. And I kind of made it so that my own business can feed itself from all these different angles, which is really great in the long run of keeping it sustainable. But it probably is some of the superpowers of how I can get so many different projects built and stuff over the years, because I just have a nice sort of way of intertwining all of them together,
Right. Yeah, because it's a win-win. You get the audience, and you also get to launch the open source project. Yes,
Yep.
I
Yep.
understand. um, I working on my app for dropdowns. I use Choice.js. I
Huh?
have to
Yep.
review your kit, and one of the things I wanted to do is not use jQuery. I don't want to build a full-fledged React select, which I've done before, and it's a pain to keep up, right?
Yep.
And it works. I mean, it's like 50 lines of code or whatever, and it works, right? It's solid, right? And it's vanilla JavaScript. So I love the simplicity of that. And I actually did a talk, I think it was in March, where I kind of talk about that, like how much you can get away with Stimulus without getting into React, right?
Yeah.
Basically, you can do a lot of stuff, right? So we had to build a feature for calendar booking meetings. So we built a calendar scheduling thing all with stimulus, right? And the DOM, and it works great, right? So yeah, I think that vanilla JS or stimulus and some libraries is the way to go. Yeah.
Yeah, if you can get away with vanilla JavaScript and simple tools, it's the same thing on the back end. The simpler the fewer dependencies and the simpler you can build something, the longer you can run it without having to touch it. Stuff isn't going to break. But if you use React, React decides to change their framework every other month or something, it's
Yes.
whatever. React, it's going to be like now that's what I call music, CDs. Remember those where it's like every few months there's another number and it's like they're up to, I don't know, several hundred or something. It's like React releases are just the same thing, and they break so much stuff. But if you use very simple things like the browser's modal, that's not going to change for a long, long time, like in any breaking way. So you might get some new features in the long term, but you are going to use that feature in the browser, and your code's just going to run for a long time, and you're not going to have to touch it unless you want to add a new feature or to improve it in some way. So for all of these projects I'm doing, the thing I learned the most was like, yeah, I used to grab a gem to do something for me. And now I will say, like, how hard is this? Do I need a ton of these complicated things? Say for pagination, that can be kind of tricky to do. It doesn't seem that hard, but it's actually like a painful problem sometimes. So grab a gem for that. They've gone through the trouble of making that performant and handling all the edge cases and everything that you don't have to worry about. But if it's something, like an API client for some API that you use, you can grab that gem off the shelf, but you do that once, then you need another API, you do it again. That API gem is a little different. It's set up differently. The interface is not the same. It's kind of clunky. And you start to realize, like, if I do this 5 more times, I'm going to have all these different dependencies. They're going to break when this external API changes, and I don't even need half of it. I only need this one feature from each one, like for Hatchbox, when we create a server. I really don't need the Hetzner gem, the AWS gem, the DigitalOcean gem, the Linode gem. If I did that, then we're just going to end up with a mess trying to maintain all of those. Somebody's going to abandon one of them, and then I'm going to have to take over it, and I only use the create server feature of it or whatever. Like, I only use a tiny thing. So rather than doing that, like in Hatchbox, started building our own API clients from scratch in plain Ruby. We don't even use, Faraday or anything. We just use net HTTP. Keep it super easy because that's not likely to change very much. And then we just built those integrations for all of those APIs. I think we may still use AWS's or whatever because we have some of them we do a little more deep integration with different things. But for the most part, I write the code once and I don't have to touch it unless those APIs change. And those companies don't really want to change their APIs because they're going to break all their customers, integrations. So they don't want to do that. So now my code is way more reliable because I don't have to worry about these things hardly changing at all. And it makes it so that we can maintain stuff for the long term with minimal maintenance. And I think that's really important. It's one of those where I decide to take on a little extra burden at the beginning because I've got to read the docs and build all this stuff from scratch. But I made some tools. I made an API client class, and then I was like, you know what? This might be handy to have for other things. Let's put it in Jumpstart. Now we use it in GoRails and Jumpstart and Hatchbox and like all of our apps. And I don't ever pull in any API clients gems anymore because those are dependencies that all work differently. So there's nothing consistent between them. But when I do it my way, they're all exactly consistent. The APIs are a little bit different in some cases, but for the most part, it's as consistent as can be. And it's going to be, minimal changes for as long as possible, which is a huge win in my book, I think.
Yes, yes. In particular, these small projects, as you were talking about RailsBytes, right? That you can keep it running and forget.
Yep. Yep.
You don't want to have to update it every single month, whatever. You just want to. It's working, so why change it, right?
Exactly. Yep.
Very interesting. It's
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah. I think we're running a little bit out of time.
Yeah.
I don't want to take much more of your time. Yeah, but it's been great to have you here, Chris. I really appreciate it. Yeah.
Thanks
Um,
for having me. Yeah.
yeah. I'm looking forward to hear your thoughts on RailsWorld, how it went. Yeah, and we'll stay in touch.
I'm sure it will be good. The first two Rails worlds have been phenomenal. We're going back to Amsterdam this year, so that'll be fun. And yeah, just traveling for conferences is so much fun. That was my first time like in Europe at a conference for programming, and like I've been to Europe just for vacation type stuff, but there were so many people from Europe that they don't have the chance to come to the US for a conference. I didn't have the chance to go to Europe for a conference. So when I did, it was just 2 days of nonstop talking to people and saying hi. It's like, we've met, on Twitter or email or something, but we've never actually met in person. So
Nice.
it was a lot of fun, but it was exhausting. Both days. First day, I tried to go get lunch and got stopped by so many people. And then I'm watching them take the food away. I was like, uh-oh. Then the second day, I got the Rails Luminary Award at the very beginning of the day. So then my talk was right after that, I think, too. So then after that, I went to go get lunch early. And I was like, I'm not going to make that mistake again. And I made it 3/4 of the way there, but I still didn't eat food the entire day. They took it away because I got
Oh, no.
distracted talking to people again. And I was like, I gotta learn. Like, I need to like bring snacks with me or something, But it was so much fun because there was so many people that, I didn't want to, you know, I needed to stop and talk to them. I met them online, wanted to actually say hi in person, and it was a blast. So if anybody is thinking about going, well, the tickets are sold out, so I guess you can't.
It's
But
too late now, but for next year,
next
yes.
year, yeah.
Yes.
And we
I
won't
want
have another RailsConf this coming year, so Rails World will be the big one.
Yes. Yes. I mean, so I promised my wife to go to Europe. So if I go to Europe, I should bring her with me and my son.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
it becomes a whole thing.
yeah.
So
That's what we did that the first year. My wife came and Jason Charnes and his wife came too. And so our wives went out exploring Amsterdam and stuff while we were at the conference. And then I think we had an extra day or two to go, explore together. But that's a good way to do it. And it's a good excuse because you can use your ticket for work, but you get a little extra vacation days and the family can join you.
yes, yes. But the dates didn't work out, so we that's why I haven't bought a ticket for RailsWorld, and bought a ticket for the Rubik, the RailsConf that happened a month ago or so, right? And because it
Yeah.
was easier for me, politically better if I go to the RailsConf.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. So I
Well,
make
next
the
year,
mistake.
I think next
Go ahead.
year they're trying to alternate North America and Europe for Rails World. So next year it should be in North America somewhere. It was in Toronto last year, so that'll be easier for you to get to, hopefully.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think that would be easier. Yeah. I promised my wife to take her to Bad Kissingen in Germany.
Ooh,
Instead of that, I took her to Flagstaff, Arizona,
okay,
right?
okay.
Which, this was for an Overlands conference, right? But this happened, I don't know, many years ago, 5 years ago, 6 years ago. And she still remembers me and says, "You promised me Germany, you took me to
Yep,
Arizona,
yep.
right? It's not the same."
No, not
So,
really. Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah,
that's why
well, you'll have to
if I
do
go to
that.
Europe, I have to take her with me.
Definitely. Definitely.
Yeah. But I'm going to be on the RubyConf in November, I think it is, that Irina is organizing here in the
Yeah.
Bay Area. Yes.
SF Ruby. Yeah.
SF Ruby, that's the one. Yeah.
Yeah, I would love to make it to that. I think that'll be a special one too because it's kind of focused not on the framework or code as much as it's code, but in the context of startups, and building
Yes.
businesses. I think that's something that was the core of Rails back in the day, but not as much anymore, like at conferences at least. It used to be very focused around, they used Rails to build Basecamp, and Rails was a framework used for GitHub and Airbnb and like YC startups all the time. And things have changed, but it's important for us to get Rails back into the entrepreneurial, communities and, with colleges and stuff and get new people using Rails to build stuff because it's the best framework for building a business with a small team compared to if you use JavaScript, they're like, well, you should outsource your database to Supabase. You should use Clerk for authentication because we don't trust you to build that yourself and whatever else. And you got to pay for all these services. And it's like, you could have just done it with Rails and like done everything by yourself and used open source tools for everything. The communities are very different now, but yeah, I think I really am looking forward to that. I won't get to go because I'll have a fresh new baby at home, but I'm hoping
right.
next year I get to. So you'll have to let me know how that conference goes because that is probably one of the ones I'm most excited about.
Yes. I'll let you know. Yeah. And congratulations on the new baby.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Very
I'll
soon
send.
I'll be sleepless nights.
Yes. But you know what? My son now has 10, so we went through that phase. But at the moment, it's a lot of painful process. But when you remember it again, you don't remember the bad stuff. You remember the good stuff.
Right.
It's interesting how it works.
It's totally true.
Yes. So it's going to be fine.
Yep. Yeah, we'll get through it. It's going to be a few sleepless months, but the time goes by so fast and they learn so quickly. So it really is I don't know. It's very temporary pain.
Yes, but very very rewarding. Yeah.
Yes.
Kudos
Exactly.
on that. Yeah.
Well,
I'll
thanks.
send you
Yeah.
some tips of my experience on raising a
Good.
baby. So you can take that, insights. Yeah.
Yeah, we're excited. It'll be our second one, so we've got a little bit of expertise now, but they're all so different, so you never know. Like one may sleep well, one may not. We'll see.
I heard I only have one, so I don't know, but I heard that, parents get a lot of pictures for the first one, but very little pictures for the second one.
Yeah,
So,
that's probably true. We have tons of pictures of our first one, so we'll have to be deliberate and make sure we don't fall into that mistake.
Yes. Thank you very
Love
much,
it.
Chris. Great to
Yeah,
have you.
thank you for having me.
Yeah.